Thank you for joining us. And I'm just really thrilled that you all came out here today for this event about social enterprises, the work that these incredible organizations do and their impact in a pandemic, no less. And most importantly, about how those of us in the room representing funders and policymakers and peers and other supporters can bolster the work of these organizations and their visions for transformational social, racial, and economic justice. So for those who don't know me, I think many folks do, but for those who don't know me, my name is Io Brooks. I'm a policy associate at the CUNY Institute for State and Local Governance. And in this role, I've had the real pleasure of getting to work very closely with everyone who's going to be part of this conversation today through a project called the Criminal Justice Investment Initiative. But for those who don't know, CJII, or the Criminal Justice Investment Initiative, is a landmark project of the Manhattan District Attorney's Office that is reinvesting $250 million of asset forfeiture funds into projects that are healing communities and bolstering public safety. And so through this project, I've had the pleasure of working with the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, which has made it possible through its really generous support, vision, and leadership. And so I feel extremely excited that Danielle Mendez from the DA's office, who runs this project, is going to be here today and be part of this conversation. And CJII has funded the work of 3 really incredible social enterprises. Sweet Generation, and today we're joined by Amy Chasan, the Executive Director and CEO, founder of Sweet Generation. Drive Change, and today we're joined by Jordyn Lexton, the founder of Drive Change. And the HOPE program's Intervine, and today we have Jennifer Mitchell, who's the Executive Director of the HOPE program. And over the past 3 years in my role, I've been able to watch these organizations navigate really formidable challenges and rise to them with grace and really strategic thinking. So I'm excited that in the course of this next hour, we're gonna get to sort of spotlight some of that incredible work and evolution of these programs. And on that note, I think we can dive into today's conversation. We know that really what we're gonna talk about today is the impact and work of these 3 organizations, and we're excited to get to do it in person, in Sweet Generation space. But of course, what really makes these programs shine or makes them vibrant is the actual work with participants and on the ground. And so we wanted to start, before we talked about the work, we wanted to start with a little bit of an overview of what that work actually is and what it looks like. And so I have the pleasure of passing it off to Jordyn Lexton of Drive Change to give a little bit of a run through of what their work looks like. And then we're also gonna hear from Jen about her work at the HOPE program and Amy at RISE, and then we'll sit down and all have a conversation about it. So thanks so much everyone for joining again, and we can get into it. And Jordyn,
thanks, Niall. It's really nice to see you and be here. I also, so I'm the founder of Drive Change, which launched in 2014. And I recently transitioned out of the organization. So August 1st was my last day. But it's really a joy for me to, this team and this community has been a huge part of my life, and it's just a joy for me to be able to be here with you all and to share a bit about the work we've been doing alongside the other social enterprise organizations, CJII, over the last 3 years. So at Drive Change, what we do is we work with young adults who are impacted by the criminal justice system, as we like to say, the criminal injustice system. I was a teacher on Rikers Island for a number of years before starting the organization, and young people just talked about needing access to quality employment. There's a public high school in Rikers, for those who don't know, and yet work and access to work came up again and again. And there was a culinary arts class where young people were happy and thriving in an otherwise incredibly devastating environment. And so Drive Change launched first as a food truck business. We used a food truck model, kind of like this cafe, to hire young adults who are system impacted, because 80% of folks who get rearrested are unemployed at the time of their rearrest. And talent is one of the biggest challenges for the sector and industry. And so if you could change the slide, Io, over the years, you can change it actually just for a second, and then, yeah, this is being our mission. But over the years, and what CJII really, really allowed us to do is it allowed us to think more about systems change work in workforce development. So with the funding, we created what we call a bi-directional approach to workforce development. We train like-minded managers who are invested not just in hiring people who are system impacted, but really committed to the talent and development and growth of those young people. We run now training for this year it'll be about 180 managers in the food and hospitality sector who are committed to doing that systems change work. In the pandemic, and you can change the slide, we also shifted our fellowship model. So we're not just putting people into food jobs, we're looking at more stable kinds of employment for people in agriculture, in community development, in leadership as well, and really allowing the young people we work with to become the leaders in their communities through a longer fellowship. If you could change that next slide. We also realized with the pandemic and also the intersection of the pandemic and the uprising and movement for Black lives, we shifted some of our work to actually be food empowerment. So our team now works with the local Marcy Houses, which is right outside of our work in Bed-Stuy, and every week we're providing access to nutrient-rich, culturally and community-driven food. That's been a big change in the pandemic. If you could change it to the next slide, that'd be great. This is just a picture of some of our food. This is the Hospitality for Social Justice, the systems change work, other businesses now doing the work. The idea being that drive change should be obsolete, social enterprise should be obsolete, every business should be thinking about and doing this kind of work. The next slide would be great. This is an example of some of the work that we're doing with our partners to show the intersection of systems of oppression that exist not just in mass incarceration, but also in the hospitality industry. And the next slide would be great, Io. And that's us hanging out with our food truck. So thank you so much. We'll talk more, but I just wanted to share that impact and say that we could not have done this kind of scale and systems change work without this kind of investment, which is what we're going to be also talking about. What does it take to make this more sustainable long term? Thanks.
I'm Jennifer Mitchell, as Io said. I'm the executive director of the HOPE program. So glad to be here in conversation with all of you today and with Amy and Jordyn. It's been a real privilege to be kind of in this cohort with Drive Change and with Sweet Generation over the past few years. We are grateful to the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and to ISLG for bringing us all together and kind of really supporting us in like a unique funder-fundee relationship. And so thank you, thank you, thank you. We'll talk more about that later. Our instructions for this first part were to give you a brief overview of our organizations as context setting. So HOPE program, our mission is empowering New Yorkers to build sustainable futures through job training, career development, and hope for life, so lifetime support services. HOPE has a 40-year track record of doing this work, and Intervine, 4 years ago was our newest kind of program. Since then, we've also started several other tracks, but really excited to share kind of about HOPE overall today and then dig deep into Intervine and the social enterprise model later. You can keep going, Aya. So just background. All of our students in all of our programs, it's a little bit cheesy to say, but they come with things that society has deemed kind of like barriers to getting gainful employment. But the one thing they all have in common is that they're committed to brighter futures and they want to be contributing members to their families, to their communities. And so they have that, no pun intended, hope to get a job that's going to lead to a sustainable career. You can keep going. So this is our overall impact. Every year, we serve over 350 students. This year, actually, our goal is 550 because we've added 2 new programs to our portfolio. Our model is holistic and comprehensive, and it works. 73% of the folks that go through our training get jobs, and then 73% are still working 1 year later. Everybody here kind of knows workforce development and knows the work involved, and that 73% is a really high number. We've been told by some funders that it's like in the top decile in terms of 1 year retention numbers, and we're really proud of that. Obviously, as minimum wage has gone up, we've also strived to place folks in jobs that are higher than minimum wage jobs, and so we have a $16.75 average wage right now. And then because we are a social enterprise with kind of dual or more than two purposes, we also have had an impact on the environment. And we have done thousands of square feet of rooftop through our Cool Roofs program that makes things more energy efficient. We do rainwater gardens, we do median cleanups, we do plantings. So we're really proud of kind of our impact on both people's lives and the New York City environment. You can keep going. These are all, as I said, holistic, comprehensive programming. And so every single one of our programs, whether it's HopeWorks or Cool Roofs or Intervine or Youth Build or HVAC, has all of these ingredients. And I think over the course of the panel, we'll talk about why some of these things are really important and why it's important even with a social enterprise model to invest in kind of wraparound services for the folks we're serving. We can keep going. So Intervine specifically. Intervine existed before the investment from the Manhattan DA's office, but it did not exist in a program cohort model. It was a social enterprise that got contracts, and we put our graduates who were either looking for work or in between jobs or needed some additional labor in work, and so they would earn some money while they were doing these other things, and the work was specifically green. Through the investment of the Manhattan DA's office, we were able to turn this into a program. And so for the past 3 years, 45 people each year have gone through a program that is 10 weeks, and they get certifications and they get paid work experience, all while getting money and being able to provide and support their families and themselves. All right, you can keep going. And this is, I kind of just did it backwards, but this is the social enterprise model that's like the contract base that we still do. In addition to our program cohorts, we have graduates that keep working with us either while they're job searching or in many cases, because some of our contracts have been more developed, they become full-time jobs as part of our social enterprise. And we'll talk more about that after. You know, obviously the reason we do this is for the people that we serve, and Brittany is one example of someone who came to us struggling with so many things that she felt weren't going her way. And through the Intervine program, she gained skills, she gained hope, and she got a job that she's super proud of. She works for NYCHA, going around teaching everybody in NYCHA developments about energy efficiency options for their apartments, and she's one of our great success stories that we're super proud of, and that's what this work is really all about. That's it for me. I'm going to pass it to Amy.
Hi, everyone. It's really incredible to just see this group of people here in this space. The Sweet Generation team has been dreaming about this for a very long time. And thanks to the funding from Danny and the support from ISLG, we, during COVID, were able to build out the space that you are in today. We launched in the height of the pandemic. We could not have people sit in our cafe, and over time, with the help of vaccines and people being responsible, we are now at a point where we're able to have a small event like this in our space. And so turning around and seeing all of you here really warms my heart, and I just feel so proud of everything the Sweet Generation team has done to make this happen and do it in a safe and responsible way. So thank you for being here today. So this space that you're in is quite different from where we came from. We moved from a 500 square foot space in the East Village. The space you're in now is 8,000 square feet, so it's 16 times the size of what we were in before. And that was 6 years ago that we opened the East Village Bakery. So for those of you that don't know us, and I'm looking at a lot of people that I have not yet met, we are a bakery, obviously. Hopefully you've had a chance to taste some of our sweets. We also now make all of our own breads and have a small savory menu, and we are building out our catering program so that we can host events on site like this and do our own catering in-house. We also run a program called RISE. RISE is our workforce development program. It trains and employs young people ages 16 to 24 from historically marginalized communities. So we work with young people through community-based organizations located all over the city, all 5 boroughs. What's unique, I think, about our model is that we work really hard at then employing the young people that go through our program. So we start with an internship, we then graduate those young people, and if there is a business need, we promote them into what we call an apprenticeship opportunity. That's a 6-month part-time position, approximately 20 hours a week, where they gain more independence and work more closely with our team to take on responsibility and ownership of our recipes or the cafe. From there, we, assuming their apprenticeship goes well, which I will say it always does, assuming the business continues to have that need, we then offer them permanent employment. And so I'll talk through some of the statistics, but we feel we really pride ourselves in training the young people we work with and then creating opportunities for them to be employed with us on site here. Our goal through this program, through our internship program, is to also teach young people the entrepreneurial thinking skills that we feel are really critical for success out in the workforce, whether it's starting their own venture or pitching an idea or a project in a bigger company that they work for. We feel that it's really critical to teach the skills of conceptualizing their idea, analyzing it, looking at the financials of it, thinking about the target market, the competitive analysis, and then getting up and doing a presentation like this to a panel of more successful entrepreneurs, pitching their idea, kind of like a Shark Tank model, and getting really valuable feedback on their concept. Those workshops happen simultaneous to them working in our kitchen, working on the cafe, and we think that it teaches those really critical thinking skills necessary to be successful and have a leg up in the workforce, in a very competitive workforce. So our participants train in job readiness, professional baking, hospitality. They get their food handler's license. We're doing barista certification now in this new space. And then entrepreneurial thinking, as I said. We want young people to walk away with certification so they can get the higher pay in another business if they aren't working with us. And now with the barista certification as well, they're able to go to another cafe and say, I'm able to make this wide array of drinks. So we have served, in approximately 6 years, we've served 141 young people with an 83% completion rate. And that's, for us, really a really powerful number because our team cares really deeply about creating an environment where young people can experience success in the workplace for the first time, because just that alone gives us as humans the confidence to go out in the world and try something else. So during that time, we've also employed 41 people. Of those positions, 11 of them were senior leadership positions, so young people would not be eligible for those yet. Of those 41 people employed, 30 of those positions would be youth-eligible positions, and 22 of those positions were filled by former RISE participants. So that's 73% of the people that we've employed have come from our RISE program. And again, that's really critical to us because we are committed to ensuring that we are training the young people we work with well enough so that we would hire them and promote them. And we now have several young people that are shift supervisors, floor managers, event managers, moving up into more senior leadership roles. This summer, so during COVID, we moved to a virtual model, which was challenging for all of the reasons that all of you have faced challenges over the past 18, 19 months, whatever it is now. And fortunately, we were able to move on site this summer. We had our first cohort in this space of 11 young people, all of whom completed successfully, one of whom is now employed with us, another of whom we are looking to hire very shortly. So we're really excited to bring this space alive with young people and have them work in the space, and are looking forward to being able to serve so many more young people in our 8,000 square feet instead of our 500 square feet. That's it.
Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really helpful context setting and storytelling about what this work is and looks like. Now we get to do the fun part, which is getting to talk more about it. So I think we can all kind of sit down, and we're going to have a little bit of a conversation. I know there's some things I want to ask, and then the hope is that we can leave a really good chunk of time to just have a conversation as a group. So to start us off, one thing that I know this group, we talked a lot about, is that even the word social enterprise or the phrase social enterprise can sometimes be elusive, because lots of different organizations and companies might brand themselves as social enterprises. So we wanted to be really specific in this conversation that the district attorney's office, when they sought to invest in social enterprises through CJII, was interested in investing in nonprofit workforce development programs that had as one arm of their approach revenue generation, but really had at their core a commitment to the people that you all serve, which I feel like we just saw and I know felt really powerfully. And I think that the DA's office saw that social enterprises were an exciting and innovative model to think about building pathways into quality jobs and into careers for people who we know are too often locked out of the workforce, like people who are disconnected from school and work, or people who have been impacted by the justice system. I feel, that being said, that over the past few years of CJII, that definition of social enterprises, and having worked with you all, is so much more than kind of those two sentences. And so to start us off, I wanted to hear about what for each of you one hallmark of the social enterprise model or approach is, and how that translates into your work every day and into your programs. And there's no strict order here. I think we can all just have a conversation, so whoever is inspired can jump in first. I think they should be.
I'm just checking if they're on. I wasn't going first.
But do you want to go first, Jen?
Now I am, I guess. So hallmark of what makes it a social enterprise. For us, it was really that these are real people doing real work, earning real money. And so it wasn't like, there's lots of great workforce development training programs out there that have people do simulated work or do make work. But what was really important to us when we were thinking through the Intervine program model is that the work was going to be real. And so I would say that is like one of the hallmarks, is that, it was really clearing out medians, or it was really helping to maintain Concrete Plant Park, or it was really creating rainwater gardens that were going to absorb rain and prevent erosion. So, really linking that. And so not only having that impact on the people's lives who were being served, but having that impact on the community as well.
What's coming to mind for me is really thinking about work as, and all the infrastructure that goes along with work as teachable. What are the teachable moments within a structural organization so that it's not just about, okay, you're gonna learn, in our case, how to chop carrots, but every day when you show up, the mentorship, the social emotional skills that's behind just the practical skills of being in a workplace. And really that in our view, is and should be the way work it just is. So kind of conveying that message of work as a learning environment and challenging our conventional understanding of work being separate from the social impact that we have. Every day you show up, you can work with people, manage people, and mentor people in a way that's going to actually translate into the way in which we're all contributing to the culture and environments that we're building. And that's what social enterprise really means to us at Drive Change.
Yeah, at Sweet Generation, we're a business first. You're in our business operation, right? And so it's when we have a team of 17 people right now. Our summer cohort, it was 11 people. We almost doubled our staff. What that means is that we have to provide work for them. And it also means that we have to fill those gaps when we don't have young people. And so we have to have a really dynamic model that kind of ebbs and flows and has real work, like Jen was saying, real work opportunities. And we also have to be understanding in the reality of this is a learning environment. And so sometimes the learning is that they don't yet understand the importance of showing up on time every day. And so we have to navigate what that means if we're depending on them to bake off the breads in the morning and they're an hour late and they had a really critical role that the team was depending on. And so for us, I think that's the hallmark for Sweet Generation of, it's got to be real work, it has to be meaningful, and that they have to be learning. And so we have to have room and flexibility and understanding to allow them to do that work and learn and grow without affecting our business operations.
Thank you so much for that. That's so key, and it's a juggling act that you do every single day. Danielle, I wanted to ask you, as sort of sitting in the funder's perspective, if you would share a little bit more about why CGI sought to invest in social enterprises, and especially orienting that within the public safety vision of the Criminal Justice Investment Initiative.
Sure, of course, thank you. CGI funds are a one-shot deal, so we had one opportunity to spend this money. This is not an investment pool that's going to continue to grow, and we can have a strategy that relies on that. And so we were looking for opportunities where, first of all, there'd be some sustainability built in, where we would be able to have a big impact by making a sizable grant and offering support to allow organizations to essentially prove a concept and then hopefully be able to use that to move forward. And so so that was one of the reasons we were specifically looking at social enterprises, and we constructed the grant opportunity as obviously a workforce development model. We wanted to create opportunities for people, specifically justice impacted folks or people at risk of justice system involvement, to have pathways to good jobs and all the things that you all have talked about. But the thing that actually we didn't think about that I think has been such a remarkable impact of the work that we've funded through social enterprises is the impact of the businesses themselves that I can say that for all three of your organizations, right? So Hope has invested in green roofing and green technology and influenced that industry. And Drive Change is working to make the food sector more culturally competent and to take responsibility for their part in workforce development. And then look at this amazing space that we're in. You're such a resource to this community, a gathering space for this neighborhood. And so that was something that I actually hadn't thought too much about, but in measuring the success of this program, we can't just look at the people who you've served, the participants who've gone through your program. The impact has been so much broader than that.
I think that's so key, and even thinking about that, I think when I think about each of your programs, I feel like from the beginning and the way that you orient your work is really on a systems change level in some ways. I feel like each of your organizations have really visionary ideas about what that looks like and how your work contributes to systems change. So I actually wanted to ask more about that, if each of you would share a little bit about how you orient your work within kind of a systems change perspective, and if there's any lessons that come from that that feel relevant for funders or policymakers or those of us who are sitting here.
We talked about this question earlier. But it's really like the systems change work that Drive Change is doing, but really this group and is thinking about and doing has to do with going back to that idea of what if the future of work was like where social enterprise was obsolete because every business was a social enterprise. And so a call to action for everyone in the food and hospitality sector, in our case, to really think about what it looks like, not just to hire folks who have barriers to employment, but to truly invest in and create those cultures where people can thrive. that shouldn't just be a drive change thing, a hope thing, a sweet generation thing. That's not sustainable. What's sustainable is like every single business being committed to those values. And so specifically, what we did with CJI's funding and support is we created this Hospitality for Social Justice program that trains managers and on the ground, on the floor folks in the industry on the real depth of history and understanding how systems of oppression exist inside of the hospitality sector, what their role as employers is in building the future of a more just and more equitable sector, and then creating community, because it's very hard to do that kind of systems change work isolated and alone. But if you're working alongside 20, 30, 40, 180 peers who are also committed to it and have strategies like, how do you actually recruit and hire and train from the communities we're trying to? How do you actually invest in the first 6 months of somebody's opportunity once they're there? All of those learnings and lessons are not drive changes. They're the community of folks every day who are going and showing up and doing this work. So this grant allowed us to actually develop that systems change approach. We believe that that is the future of workforce development, that it's not enough to train people to enter work. Jobs have to get better. It's all of our responsibility to make the jobs and employment better for all people. And so we're really, really excited to have been able to develop some of that, which is now actually how we generate revenue. It's a pay-for-service model. So these managers and businesses are paying to be a part of that training. What I will say, and this is part of like what we've also been talking about, is that it really is, to do that kind of level of systems change work is big. And the revenue we're gonna generate this year is only $50,000 from that program. So it's not gonna sustain drive change as an organization, but what this allowed us to do was to test it, to grow and understand that there's a huge market for it, especially in this time with the pandemic. There's a deeper commitment to what does the future of work look like. And so hopefully there's infrastructure build that is now going to allow it to actually gain the scale that would actually create that self-sustaining model that we've dreamed about for a long time.
Well, first of all, I want to give a shout out to my team in the back of the room. Jared is the director of the RISE program and really leading the charge on where things are going now. And Taya Denora is our general manager. And then you might see Jamal, our chef, our head chef, cruising around the space. He's responsible for the food. But what I wanted to say is that, and I'm going to quote Jared right now, is that people often obviously ask him, like, what is the work that you're doing? And he often says, like, the way that I see our work is that we're just being good managers. We're just creating the workplace that we all wish that we could work in. And so we're not doing anything super special. We're just taking our job really seriously and being good managers. I hope I'm quoting you properly. Pretty close? I should say Jared also worked for Drive Change as the head chef there in the early days.
Yeah, he was our first head chef and co-founding member of the organization.
Yeah. Are you coming to Hope next?
But yeah, so, I think in terms of systems change, we, as a business, we take very seriously creating a workplace that supports learning and growth. And we want to see that change in all businesses. But it's not easy and it's not cheap. And when I was talking before about that flexibility and that adaptability that we must have in order to ride those ebbs and flows and the mistakes that inevitably are going to happen, it's what the program is about. We depend very heavily on support from CJI, from funders to be able to bridge that gap. Because the alternative is raising our prices in a way that would be really ostracizing to the community that we are in. And so we have to find a balance between, what is the threshold of cost that we can offset to the customer? What are people willing to spend? What's going to ostracize people? And how we fundraise to support that gap.
So ditto to everything Jordyn and Amy just said. But also, if you had asked me this question 20 months ago, before COVID, I would have said, for 20 years, I have been in the direct service space, and we serve people and we worry about the people right in front of us, and then I sit on lots of boards, and I'm vice chair of the New York City Employment Training Coalition, and I leave the policy advocacy stuff to those organizations, and at Hope, we really are direct service. 20 months later, and through COVID, my answer is very different. I really do feel like direct service organizations and folks doing this work this is a moment. We are living in a moment where we need to revive New York's economy, and we need to build it back in ways that are more inclusive and more equitable. And if people like me and my teams step back from that conversation and leave it to people who aren't on the front lines, it won't happen in the way it needs to happen. And so here I look at Drive Change, I look at Sweet Generation, I look at Hope's Intervine model, and I say, systems change means like really unpacking the lessons of what works, and then like elevating them and making them replicable. And to Jordyn's point, so that there's not a differentiation between a business and a social enterprise, but all businesses function in a way that's inclusive and equitable and develops talent in real ways from everybody.
That's so great. And Danielle, I wanted to tack on your reflection on that question, and then also, as a funder, what you felt CGI did to make space for some of this really amazing kind of systems change thinking at these organizations, and what we've learned from where you sit watching that happen.
Yeah, I think what I've learned from this funding experience in particular with this portfolio is the importance of flexibility. We started out, can I call you out? Drive Change came to us with this amazing vision for a food truck commissary. I was in love with it. I was so excited to build the food truck commissary. And then I'll never forget the meeting where Jordyn said, we're not building a food truck commissary. I have a whole new vision. And am I mischaracterizing that at all? And we were kind of like, okay. Should we pull our money back? Should we force Jordyn to do what they said they were going to do? Like, well, what are we going to do now? And I'm really glad that what we did was listen to what you were proposing instead, and to all the thought that had gone into that strategic planning change that you made. And we decided to be flexible and roll with it. And because of that, you obviously put your organization in a position to grow in an authentic way and to be a part of this sort of systems change conversation that is all of our goal, I think. And so that was a major lesson for me that came out of that. And then I just also want to say that because we have the incredible team at ISLG and the training and technical assistance resources that we do, we've been able to offer a lot of different types of supports. And so specifically for this group of grantees, we've been able to provide some assistance with business planning. And the final thing I will say is people never want to invest, or funders rarely want to invest in capital. But when you're sitting in this space, I don't have to say why it's important. I mean, for the community, first of all, to have this space, for the young people who work with you to come here every day, that's just a game changer.
Yeah, I mean, we would not have been able to do this or anything like this without the support of Danny. I mean, this was a game changer, and it credentialed us in a way that made it so that we were able to get some matching donations, some matching investments to build something even grander than what we proposed to Danny when we applied. So funding like this is rare and it's critical, because now when people come here, it reflects properly the work that we're actually doing, as opposed to our little tiny window of a shop in Manhattan. Now people come in here and they're like, oh, this is something, this is powerful, this is a critical component of this community. And that makes it so that we can be sustainable long term.
And I just want to say, Amy, this is my first time here, and I'm so blown away. Congratulations. It's extraordinary, and I'm so excited for you.
As part of this event, we thought about doing like a tour of the space, and then we all were having so much fun mingling, but it really is such an amazing space, and the way that you all have fit in space for your programming and your bakery to happen in parallel and in conversation with each other is incredible. It's really
I'm happy to give a tour at the end if anybody wants to stick around.
Yeah.
There's a lot to see.
Yeah. Okay, well, I know that there's so many more things that I would want to ask you guys, but I also know that other folks might have questions as well. So before we turn it over for a conversation all together, I think maybe the last thing I wanted to ask was that I feel like we've talked a lot about impact and the way that you conceptualize the work and a little bit of what your work looks like. But I was wondering if we could do a little bit of storytelling about some of the successes that you've seen over the past 3 years of CJII. And so I was wondering if each of you wouldn't mind sharing an anecdote or a moment where you really felt the impact of your work, either for the folks that you serve or for your, for the organization more broadly.
No, there is really one. I mean, there are so many, but there is one particular, I think, something that really shares a lot of the true impact on on lives of individuals in a really clear way, considering the impact that we've witnessed collectively throughout this pandemic, but also knowing that it affects different people in different ways. And specifically, the person who I'm going to talk about is, I'll just use the initial B, but B was working for one of our hospitality for social justice partners, Cafe Panna, which is an ice cream shop in Irving Place in Manhattan, and was doing an amazing job. He had graduated from the fellowship in January, so he was only working there for a few months. And Cafe Panna, like so many other businesses, shut their doors in March and laid off all of their staff, including B. B was also on a work release program at a Brooklyn jail, which required him actually to go back to jail every day after work, which is actually something I hadn't really interacted that much with throughout the last 10 years of being in this field. But if you can imagine that, you're out, you're working, you're living your life, and every day you actually have to go back to jail. Being at work allowed him to stay home 3 nights a week, but once he got laid off, he was sent back to jail, just indefinitely. And with the advocacy of our partner at Cafe Panna, and through letter writing and some press and publication, she was able to advocate for his release, rehired him, and he has been a manager working at that storefront. And they had an incredible recovery story, a lot to do with his ingenuity and support during the pandemic when she herself was upstate and not in the city. So that is just one example, but really bring together all of these facets and how it is about the other relationships that make this work happen.
Thank you. Great story. I was going to share 2 anecdotes. I do have permission from both people to use their names. And what I don't know if everyone realizes this, and I actually don't know if it was exactly the same for Sweet Generation and Drive Change, but our grant, our Intervine programming, different from many of our other programs because it was funded by the Manhattan DA's office. We could either serve folks who were 18 to 24 who were at risk of being involved in the criminal justice system, or people over age 24 who were released and had been formerly incarcerated. And so one of the stories is about Enrique, who came to us, and he was 21 when he came to us, and he had been job searching before COVID for a long time to no avail. And then COVID hit and he got COVID. He was one of the first people back in April of 2020 to get COVID. And so that put his job search on hold. And then, you know, many programs did not pivot to remote training during COVID, but we did in all of our programs and in Intervine specifically. And so, and I'm blanking on who it was, but somebody who Enrique is knew referred him to the Intervine program. And so through COVID, he worked in our Intervine program, earning money, helping his family, getting the training he needed, OSHA 30 certification, SST training. We actually, even in the early, like May and June for that Intervine cohort, we were able to get them on site in rooftops with solar installers. And so Enrique had an opportunity to get on a rooftop and get a week of solar installation training. And so he ended up getting that turned into an internship, and then the internship turned into a job. And so he is now, after, you know, he had 2 years of unemployment. He had been out of school before that. He is now so proud, and there's a really sweet video of Enrique on our website as a solar installer, and also with plans to like go back to school and like really embrace like the environmental aspect and the fact that he was doing a job that was impacting the community. So that's one of them. And then kind of on the other side of the folks we serve, someone who is older, there was a gentleman named Chris who went through the Intervine program too. He was 40. He had just recently been released after a pretty long stint in an upstate prison and had no idea what he wanted to do, where he was going to go. And then like immediately, and you'll all know this, like there's some people that like it takes them a little while to warm up to the program. There's some people that like, you know, come, but they're super skeptical all along the way. But Chris was like the opposite. Chris was like the superstar, like first day of class, and like everyone just really like embraced and was so excited for what his future held. And then he had a setback, and stuff happened with like parole, and it was COVID, and it got complicated. And then he came back and was able to finish the program, and is now working for one of our closest employer partners, Energy Training Solutions, and also just so grateful that he has a job that he's doing that's impactful. And I think for me, that's, you know, we alluded to it in the beginning, the fact that you can like do a job and earn money and provide for your community and your put food on the table for your family, but also like benefit the community is like really, really powerful. And I'm really proud that Intervine people can do both of those things at the same time.
Yeah, I'm sitting here trying to think about like which anecdote, which young person do I want to talk about? But I think what's more meaningful and what better reflects Sweet Generation's model is what I touched on earlier, which is our team now. And so I just want to run through the young people that work for us now as permanent employees. We just, as I mentioned before, we just hired an intern from our summer program who's an apprentice who works on the counter now. From Jared's, one of his first cohorts with Sweet Generation, we hired 2 young people, Leslie and Tiana. They worked on the counter. They kept our bakery running during COVID. The 2 of them, with a couple other staff, were the people that showed up every day to work during the most scary time. They have recently been promoted both into shift supervisors, so they're now managers of the cafe. Tiana now, recently, Jared has promoted into the RISE coordinator position, which is really exciting for us because, oh, Leslie, hi. I was just talking about you. This is Leslie. So Leslie, Do you want to talk? Is that okay? Do you want to talk?
Here and be part of the.
We're changing course here. This is unplanned. But I'm just gonna hand it over to Leslie to talk about her experience. Better her than me.
Well, I don't really have much to say. This is unexpected.
Talk for an hour.
I mean, I could.
I know.
I could. I don't really have much to say. This was kind of unexpected. I was just working, but I really love it here. They made me feel welcomed, and I've grown a lot since I've been here. I've been here almost 3 years now. It's really special to see the company grow. I want to cry now. Damn. Yeah. I love it here.
Awesome.
I get really emotional when I start talking. So.
What's
yeah.
your long-term career plan? Like, if you fall in love with the food industry?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
That's what they're helping me explore and kind of try new things. So yeah, that's why I really like it.
Future is bright,
Yeah, I hope so.
for sure.
Leslie is a killer salesperson and interested in journalism.
Yeah.
And so Jared has been working with her on exploring how that interest might fit into the Sweet Generation model. And so, this is what it means to be a social enterprise. Like, what job do you get where you get to explore this interest that you might have maybe in the future someday? That's what Sweet Generation is. That's what a social enterprise is that we get to work with her. We have a person on our team specifically dedicated to supporting Leslie in exploring this interest that she has and see if actually she does want to do that or not at all and wants to do something totally different. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That was amazing and such a sign of what it looks like when we're sharing space in our programs and our work in all of these ways. And I think all of us are getting to benefit from the really amazing work of your team, Amy, with this space, with these snacks. And so it's really wonderful to put faces and names to all of that. Danielle, I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to add onto this litany of stories and successes before we open it up. No pressure.
The only thing I'll say is I'm so glad that we were able to facilitate this cohort, because it has seemed, at least from my vantage point, that you all have benefited, I would say, from being a part of this collaborative together, or that I guess I should say that this was a collaborative experience for the three of your organizations. So that's been really nice to see.
Thank you so much, Amy, Jordyn, Jen, and Danielle, for your work every single day to move mountains in this city and for the people you serve, and for sharing so much in this conversation. It really is a gift to get to work with you. So thank you.